Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Shelby and today I'm going to be giving you guys some fall book recommendations. Fall is my most favorite season of all. I love the leaves changing colors. I love the smells and tastes associated with fall. I love bundling up for the cooler weather. Everything about this season I absolutely just adore. So I thought for my first official video of the fall season, I would give you guys some book recommendations. Before we get into those, however, I do want to give a huge thank you to the sponsor of this video, Ana Luisa. I am so excited to be partnering with Ana Luisa on this video. Ana Luisa is my personal favorite jewelry brand because besides having extremely affordable jewelry, the company itself is dedicated to making the jewelry industry more sustainable. Ana Luisa is 100% carbon and water neutral, and all of their metals and gemstones are ethically sourced. I love that when I wear their jewelry, I contribute to their mission that high quality jewelry shouldn't cost us our planet. Ana Luisa has so graciously given me a discount code to share with all of you guys. You can use Grace10 for 10% off your purchase, and they also sent me 3 pieces I am super excited to share with you. The first piece they sent me is this Cardi layered necklace. This gold layered necklace is so beautiful and creative. It has a sparkling zirconia necklace and a golden horn necklace. I like that these two necklaces you can wear together or apart. A lot of times layered necklace sets are attached to each other, but I really like that you can wear this together or separately, and I absolutely just love the pieces. They are so beautiful. The next piece that they sent me were the Adeline stud earrings. These are flower stud earrings and they're tiny, but they're really bold and they're covered in gold. It is the perfect grab and go accessory. They have a mother of pearl stone set in the center of each earring, and I love how simple yet elegant these earrings are. The final piece they sent me were the Estrella stud earrings. These are gleaming star earrings with cubic zirconia crystals, and they are the perfect accessory just to add a little bit of sparkle to your outfit. I've really loved layering these earrings. I like to wear them with something else. I'm currently wearing both pairs right now, and they just look like a beautiful little North Star that I think is super fun. Thank you once again to Ana Luisa for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to use my code GRACE10 to get 10% off your order. And now let's get to some fall book recs. So as I just said, you can use the link in the description below to check out their current sale, and I just absolutely adore the pieces that I have on today. So let's get on to the book recommendations for fall. I have a ton of really great books on this list. I have middle grades, young adult fantasy, adult fantasy, just some books that I think really put you in that fall spirit. So to start off, I have 2 middle grade graphic novels to share with you guys. The first of which is Seance Tea Party by Raymina Yee. This is about a girl who discovers that the house that she currently lives in has a ghost, and it's a very friendly ghost, and she and the ghost do everything together. But as the girl starts to grow up, she realizes that she doesn't need the ghost as much anymore, and now her ghostly friend is kind of figuring out what her purpose in life is and is trying to remember who she was before she became a ghost. It's a really poignant story about friendship and loss. It is spooky in the fact that it is about a ghost haunting a girl's house, but I would describe this more as a cozy Halloween fall book. So if you're in the mood for something not too intense, just a really cozy fall book with beautiful illustrations, I highly recommend checking out the Seance Tea Party. The second middle grade graphic novel I'm going to share with you guys is Coven, and this is by Jennifer Dugan and Kit Seaton. This book follows a girl named MZ who is living her life in California when she finds out that her family's coven back east has been the target of some recent murders. So she is forced to move back there with her family and rejoin her coven to try to find who is targeting her family members. And MZ is one who's kind of tried to reject the magic lifestyle, but in order to protect her friends and family, she will have to take up her fire magic once more and learn how to wield it in order to protect those she loves. This book was sent to me by Penguin Teen. Thank you guys so much. And it's really just the perfect witchcraft graphic novel. Once again, like, I love the illustrations. I think it is so cool, and I think graphic novels that really give you that visual of like witchcraft and Halloweeniness, you know, are perfect for the fall time. I know I love reading graphic novels in the fall, especially when they are about witches or fantasy elements. So this is definitely one you should be on the lookout for. Moving into young adult, the next book I have to share with you guys isn't a fantasy per se, but it still is definitely going to give you all of those young adult spooky fall vibes. And that would be Stalking Jack the Ripper by Carrie Maniscalco. This is probably one of my favorite series, or it's in my top like 20 favorite series of all time. Stalking Jack the Ripper follows Audrey Rose Wadsworth, who is by all accounts a proper English lady living in Victorian England. However, she has a dark secret, and that is that she wants to become a forensic scientist like her uncle. So she, under cover of darkness, studies the art of dissecting and understanding dead bodies because it is her wish to become this forensic surgeon. However, in the 1800s in England, there is a rather notorious serial killer on the loose by the name of Jack the Ripper. And when the bodies of his victims start showing up at Audrey and her uncle's door, Audrey feels that it is up to her to solve the crime of who is Jack the Ripper before it is too late. I love that there is such a thriller aspect to this book. I think that it has a really good flow. It's really just keeps you captivated the entire time, and I love how each book in this series just kind of like relates to the other. It isn't like there are 4 separate mysteries that you need to solve. They're all kind of interconnected in this really amazing way. And I love Audrey Rose. I think she's a headstrong, wonderful main character. I love the love interest in this book. He is so dreamy and so supportive of Audrey's dreams, which I absolutely love. And I just really, really love this book and encourage everyone to read it during the fall season. So while that was historical fiction young adult, this is contemporary young adult, and it is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. As one can tell from the title, this is a murder mystery, and in it we follow a girl named Pip who, for her senior seminar project in high school, wants to attempt to solve the murder of a local townsgirl who had been murdered a few years prior. So she decides to embark on this investigation because while the police had closed the case, there are elements of it that Pip felt were not clear. So she decides to go back into the investigation, and she starts getting mysterious notes and warnings to stop looking into the death of Andy Bell. I really think this book is interesting because while you have chapters that are kind of explaining the action of what is happening in this book, you also have the actual like writings and essays from Pip of her writing the senior seminar project, and I think that was a really interesting way to kind of format the book. The mystery itself is really fun to read. I know that Holly Jackson has other books in this series following these characters, but if you just want to read the first one, I've only read this one. It does wrap up really nicely in the one book. So I had a lot of fun reading it, and I think it's really great for people who are a little bit wary to go into like hardcore murder mysteries or horrors. I think this has a good in between. So if you want to like dip your toes into the genre, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder is a really good book to start with. So now moving on into young adult fantasy, the first book that I have here is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. This is such a great book to read around October, I think, because it all kind of revolves around Dias de los Muertos, and I absolutely loved this book when it came out. In it we follow Yadriel, who is a trans boy who wants to prove to himself and to his family that he can be a real brujo, which is a witch. His family doesn't believe that he can become a real brujo because of his gender, so he sets out on this mission to solve his cousin's murder in order to prove himself to his father. So how does he go about this? He decides to summon the ghost of his cousin who was murdered to help figure out who killed him, but instead summons the ghost of the recently deceased bad boy from school, Julian. And even though Yadriel is determined to rectify his mistake, Julian does not want to go into the afterlife quietly. So the two team up to try to solve Julian and Yadriel's cousin's murder. But along the way, Yadriel is feeling more and more reluctant to let Julian go. This is such a beautiful queer romance. I love the trans representation. I think that Aiden Thomas just really knows his audience and wrote a book that is engaging and interesting, and I just love how he wrote this story. It is a standalone, so you don't have to deal with a big commitment to a long fantasy series, and I think Aiden Thomas is really good at writing standalones. He really understands that pacing of building up the drama and having that explosion at the climax and bringing it back down. I think some authors do struggle with having a fantasy in a standalone, but I believe Aiden Thomas does it really, really well. So highly recommend checking out Cemetery Boys if it is of interest to you at all. Sorry, my camera moved a bit ahead to adjust it. Okay, so the second young adult fantasy book I have here is Three Dark Crowns by Kendare Blake. This is a pretty, I don't want to say like horrific horror fantasy, but I think the premise is really dark. Obviously the title of the book is Three Dark Crowns, but essentially, this book takes place in this fantastical island called Fenburn, where every generation there are triplets born, each with an equal right to the throne. And there can only be one queen of these lands, so when the three triplets are born, they are sent out to different parts of the island slash the kingdom to grow up and train their magic. And when they all come of age, there has to be a fight to the death to determine which will be the one queen who reigns over the entire kingdom. I mean, the back of the book literally says, the night the sisters turn 16, the battle begins. The last queen standing gets the crown. And it's just such an interesting dynamic because you have these three sisters who, by all means, like, don't even remember each other really, who literally grew up apart and are now forced to come together and battle it out to the death to see who will get the throne. It is such a great book. I love how all three sisters in this book are so unique in their personalities depending on how they were raised, and it's just so fun to see those dynamics come into play together throughout this book. So if you're looking for a dark fantasy young adult, I highly recommend Three Dark Crowns. Okay, so I have two more books to share with you guys, and these are both, I would say, adult fantasy dark books. One of them I'm not quite sure about. It kind of read to me as kind of a dark fantasy, but I think you could also obviously read both of these as a young adult. Just, you know, have a look at some trigger warnings. The first book, which is the one I was a little bit unsure about if it qualified as more adult or young adult, would have to be Gallant by V.E. Schwab. This is a recent read of mine. It is one that I have been wanting to read since it came out, and let me tell you, I am super happy I waited until the fall to read this book. Gallant follows a girl named Olivia Pryor who has grown up at this orphanage, and the only clue she has to her past is a diary that was left her by her mother. And in this diary you can see her mother slowly begin to go mad, and the last thing in the diary, it says, "You will be safe as long as you don't go to Gallant." Well, Olivia receives this mysterious letter from her supposed uncle telling her that they couldn't find her and they couldn't find her mother, but now they're hoping that since they have found her at this orphanage, she will return home to Gallant. Olivia decides to go back to her ancestral home and find out more about her past, but when she gets there, none of the people in the house actually sent her that letter. This book was very atmospheric, very lyrical. The way it was written was kind of a mystery. I think V.E. Schwab does a really good job at setting a mood or a tone for her books, and this was definitely giving creepy horror thriller with dark ghosts and ghouls haunting Olivia throughout the book, and the kind of dark underside to Gallant that you have to discover. It is, I think, perfect to read in the nighttime because it really just gives you all those spooks and scares. I just could not put this book down because I was so determined to figure out what was happening to Olivia and what was the mystery of Gallant. So if you are looking for something definitely a level up in terms of horror spookiness, I highly recommend checking out Gallant. Alright friends, so the final adult fantasy book I have to share with you guys is Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco. Yes, the same author who wrote Stalking Jack the Ripper, which I mentioned earlier, wrote a fantasy series that I think that the first book could be classified as young adult, new adult, kind of, but the second book is definitely new adult fantasy, which is why I kind of just decided to put the whole series in that category. So Kingdom of the Wicked follows a girl named Amelia and her twin sister Victoria, and they are close. They help run their family's restaurant on the island of Sicily, and they happen to be a part of a coven of witches. They live among the humans, but no one can know that they are witches as they are hunted at this point in time. But one day Amelia discovers her sister has been murdered and she is determined to figure out who is the murderer. So she summons one of the princes of hell, aka Wrath, to help her solve her sister's murder. And as they go around Sicily trying to find clues and mysteries, Amelia and Wrath both discover that there is something much larger at play here. It is such a good book. It is such a good series. The third book is coming out in September, so definitely highly recommend reading the first two books before that happens, because you will not want to miss the conclusion to this series. I know I don't want to miss the conclusion to this series. It is one I've been highly anticipating forever. So if you are interested in a dark adult fantasy with some enemies to lovers and witches and delicious Italian food, highly recommend checking out Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco. And those are the 8 books I'm going to be recommending you guys to read this fall. Obviously, I cannot fit the amount of books I want to recommend you guys in one video, so I'm going to be leaving down below in my description links to my past few fall recommendations from the past 2 or 3 years, so you can get even more book recommendations if you want. And as always, my bookstagram is filled to the brim with fall book recommendations around this time of year, so definitely be sure to check those out. I want to give one last huge thank you to Anna Luisa for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to go to the link in my description box to get your discount for September. Once again, I absolutely love their pieces. I absolutely love their messaging about creating a more sustainable jewelry industry. So thank you guys so much for partnering with me, and if you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Hit the notification bell to get updates on when I post. I post every single week, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!